Hi, I'm Dennis Washington with Cross Digital and CrossDig.com. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Got a great interview with Mitch Edwards. He is the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Business Development at High Ground Solutions Incorporated. You may not recognize the name. Maybe you will, maybe not. But Schoolcast, many school systems out there use that product. That's one of the products they've got there. But I had a great chance to talk with Mitch. We talked about a variety of topics that you're about to hear about, basically around the idea of marketing. And it's some of the topics that we've touched on in these series of podcasts over the years. But the idea of having a business plan, researching your plan, coming up with a plan, then implementing it and researching it, and evaluating, see the results. And he really goes into depth on that and gives some really, really great insight into this. To give you an idea about Mitch, and he's certainly very qualified to talk about a lot of these things. He's worked with many of North America's top public and private companies. Before joining High Ground Solutions in 2009, he served as for about 10 years as the Director of Communication for the Alabama Department of Education. He's also headed marketing programs for Sonnet Energy Services, which is now Kinder Morgan, and developed communication business strategies for Regions Financial Corporation and EBSCO Industries. He's also serves with the Public Relations Society of America Southeast District, where he's the 2013 chair, and also has a very community outreach roles in several community organizations, including Birmingham's Vulcan Park and Museum. So very, very in touch with a lot of what's happening from a marketing, public relations perspective. Just really does a lot of that, but understands the value of what the internet brings and how it's such a game changer. So take a few minutes. It's one of the longer interviews I've done, but it's well worth it. A lot of great insight. Without further ado, here's the interview with Mitch Edwards. Joined on the phone now with Mitch Edwards, Senior Vice President of Marketing and Business Development at High Ground Solutions. Mitch, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Dennis. It's a pleasure.
Just to kind of give everybody, I just got through kind of setting up the formal bio and introduction, but tell people, what you basically do on a daily and weekly basis.
Well, on a daily and weekly basis, mainly what I'm working on is to be able to try to achieve the goals and objectives of our company for High Ground Solutions as it relates to our business plan. And that's kind of overlaying a communication plan that follows those same business objectives to be able to achieve measurable results, basically. That's it.
And there's, every business has those kind of goals, but when you kind of get down into brass tacks, what are the things that you're looking at that really you see as kind of the cornerstones of success right, here in the year 2013, about to get into 2014?
Dennis, I find it amazing a lot of times when I talk to other PR professionals, it's almost like an inside secret. So it's always good to share those kind of things, I think, with your podcast subscribers, is that when people find out what we really do for PR professionals, if they really knew what we did, we would probably all lose our jobs because some of it is just common sense.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not that common. You have good sense. I find a lot of times we shoot ourselves in the foot a lot of times because we're not looking at what the big picture is on the day-to-day basis and helping us to be able to get where we want to be able to do. And we kind of get tied down a lot of times as PR professionals with just counting programs and not looking at those programs that count and continue to kind of look for the long and strategic view for what we want to be able to achieve.
You bring up a great point there, the whole idea of looking at what works and what doesn't. And a lot of businesses, I've found they get stuck doing things the way they've always done them for 10, 20, 30 years or so. And they forget to stop and actually take a look at things and see, okay, this is working really well. This surprisingly used to work, doesn't anymore. Do you find that it's a struggle sometimes, even within your own business, but maybe even with other businesses as well, trying to just convince them to evaluate that their current marketing plans?
You know, you hear a lot of times, whether it's in churches or you hear it in businesses, you know, those 7 deadly words are that we've always done it this way before, kind of a thing. Yeah. And I know even when I worked at the Department of Education, this came into play one time. I was the victim of identity theft. And what happened when you started tracing it back is because we at the Department of Education, when I worked there for a decade, and they've been doing it for years and years and years, is that every supervisor, director, no matter for hardly any instance that happened, you signed your name, but you also signed your full Social Security number on that. And those things got left around a lot of times. And we started looking at it. Why do we do that? Well, because this form was generated and somebody else had generated this form, and when we really started investigating, there were as many as 32 different forms that required the full Social Security number. Wow. Now, that doesn't sound like a whole. It may sound like a whole lot, but you know, the repercussions are, you know, like throwing a pebble into a pond, and that's exactly what had happened with me as well. Is that, you know, that got laying around through nobody's fault, perhaps, but somebody picked it up and they copied that and blah blah blah. And all what it forced us to really do is evaluate what we're doing it, why we're doing it. And we came up with a different process to be able to do it. And good public relations counsel, I think, and part of the marketing as well as that, it's going to force you to look at things in a different light than you've looked at it before to be able to still achieve the same objective you want to do it, but maybe looking at a different mix for what it is that you want to be able to accomplish.
You know, and it's real easy, I guess, at some point to once people see the light, say, okay, we do need to evaluate what we do. How do we evaluate it? And, you know, I mean, ultimately, the bottom line is for any business is do something that drives a return on investment and makes some money. But are there some unique ways that you like that really help you determine, you know, when you look at, okay, we do A and it creates B, you know, how do you go about that evaluation process?
Well, this is part of where that secret sauce comes into play, and this is what I want to be able to share with your podcast subscribers, too. It's really kind of simple. You can hang a bunch of different acronyms on it, but it kind of comes down to 4 different parts. In my opinion, and this is one person's opinion, of course, is that it comes down to the RPI formula, or a lot of people would say the RACE formula as well. And it's basically research, planning, implementation, and then evaluation. Yeah. And in your comments earlier, you mentioned evaluating those processes that you're doing, and not to get stuck in that rut of this is the way that we've always done it before. Right. That evaluation, if you do it correctly, is going to be the genesis for your next level of going through of the process again. It's going to be your research to start with the next time, because it's never any kind of a scientific formula. I think good public relations is a healthy mix between art and science, quite frankly. Yeah. What you do may not be exactly how I do it. We may achieve very similar results in the end, but hopefully if you're doing it right and you're going through those research, the planning, your implementation, and then the evaluation, then you have something as a basis to be able to measure ultimately, because at the end of the day, isn't that what you want to be able to do? I want to be able to sell X number of widgets, or I want to be able to move public opinion in this direction. And by going through those 4 steps, will certainly help you to be able to achieve those quicker, easier, and have some really good basis for the next time you go through that process again.
You make a great point, because that's one thing when you and I had talked earlier this week about the whole concept of doing your research to begin with, and you know, we kind of started this conversation backwards, I'm in a sense, talking about evaluation, but really evaluation and research do kind of lend itself to each other, because it does start you down that road of beginning the cycle again for your next project. When you talk to clients initially, or when you talk even within your own business about research, how much of those 4 elements, how much time and effort do you put into that research?
Well, that is an excellent question, Dennis, because that is the thing that I find that most people want to skip. That they'll go on into the planning and the implementation portion of it, and they may or may not have the evaluation, but those are the bookends. It's the key part that's going to hold everything else up. But the research, people tend to be really scared about, and it doesn't have to be formal research, and that's what I would really like to share with so much folks, is that it doesn't have to, it can be third party, it could be looking for something, and isn't Google a great thing where you go out and you can type in a particular question and you can get results back? It can be something that someone else has already done as a third party. It may just be looking internally and going through some of the records or the logs that you already have at your fingertips that nobody else has. But sometimes we just don't start at the rudimentary, at the basics, to get what I like to refer to as just, the basic informal type of a research that any business owner is going to have at their disposal.
You make a great point there with that. And, you're right about the research. I think a lot of times people are maybe also scared what they find, that, they've got in their head an idea of what they think they need to do to accomplish what they want to do, but they're scared that the research may completely send them in an opposite direction and feel like that's some weakness on their part. But as you kind of point out here, that's really more of a strength.
That's absolutely a strength, and for any business owner, you have to dig into that. Those things that are at your fingertips, it's better to know than to not know, as I like to think, because once you know, then you can diagnose, like any good doctor is, you can diagnose what the problem or the issue is. A lot of times you find that this is what we want to be able to do, and I find a lot of entrepreneurs, small business owners especially, even up to the corporation level will do this, is that here's the problem, and how we need to tackle it is we need to do a video. We need to get on a Facebook page. We need to send out a tweet about that. But that's not what the real issue is. There are underlying issues beyond that, and those have to be addressed and corrected first. And that's how it's going to walk you through those processes a lot of times. Let me give you a quick example of something that happened to me not too terribly long ago. In our business, we do voice, email, text for a variety of different businesses, and we do app creation as well. Schools, churches, malls, a variety of different businesses. That's what we do. Our bread and butter is a product called Schoolcast. And CampusCast as well. One of the things that we do through that product is notify parents when their child is not at school through a daily attendance calls. So I thought it would be pretty easy to go back to some schools, and I wanted to create ultimately some kind of awareness of how our product could better serve them and to serve other schools through daily attendance calls. Now, that doesn't sound very sexy or glitzy or whatever, but, that's really what we want to be able to accomplish. Yeah. But to find that research, it was kind of difficult, even though most schools and definitely at the central office level for a school district does have a daily attendance coordinator. So fortunately, I put out some feelers, and I found a guy, a principal, and I said, really what we want to be able to say or to be able to do, to look at the basics for this research are pretty simple. What was your absentee rate before you started using our product? And then what is your absentee rate after using our product? Right. And this principal was really, really good at being able to do that. And he said, Mitch, I went one better for you. He goes, I looked at our lunch balances as well, because we use that service. And on the lunch balance, let me tell you, on the daily attendance calls we looked at it, they improved their daily attendance at one school nearly 2%. That doesn't sound like a whole lot, but that's a pretty good bit from a school. When you look at a school, any school on any average day, you have about 95 to 96% attendance. So if you're notifying parents and let them know, their child's not in school, that they have X number of days before that the parent's held accountable in a court for their child's actions and stuff, that means a lot, right? On the daily lunch balances, when you start looking at that too, he said, he goes, I didn't even realize this. Before we started notifying parents that their child's lunch balance is below this level, I think it was $5 or so. He said on a weekly basis, we had at our school between $4,000 to $5,000 we were carrying on our books.
Wow.
But when we started notifying parents and saying the lunch balance is this, submit payment, blah, 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 he said we dropped that down to each day between $4 to $6.
Wow.
So if you extrapolate that over the course of a week, over the course of a month, over the course of a year, just that alone at that one school not only paid for our service, but it also paid for the service for the entire district, and that's one school.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Oh, it is. Well, and what it does, too, and you kind of shed this light on this a little bit, not only are you seeing the financial return on investment, but you're also starting to see what the immeasurables are, the improvement in communication between for lack of a better way of saying it, the business and the customers. It's and I've worked in the TV business for many years, a communications industry that sometimes is challenged within itself to communicate. But it's true, really, with a lot of businesses, they struggle not only internally communicating but externally communicating. And what you're seeing here is a product that say, okay, there may be cost dollars associated with this, but and we are seeing a financial return on investment, but the side effects, that you can't really measure financially, that is the improvement with communication, improvement between business and customer, to me just pays rewards and creates that warm, fuzzy feeling between the customer and the business.
Oh, that is so true and so right on point, Dennis, is that, everything that you're doing, it's great if it can go towards the bottom line in some way,
right.
But you are trying to bank, for lack of a better word, some goodwill, some credibility, whether it's with your media and your media relations, directly with your customers, because everyone wants to be a good corporate citizen. What you don't want to happen, though, is when the stuff hits the fan or something, and then you're called on the carpet for it, and you don't have any kind of an action plan.
Right.
You haven't built up any goodwill.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, you raise a great point there. And that kind of was leading into where I was wanting to kind of go next with the idea that social media and marketing, how it's evolved to internet marketing, email marketing, and so forth. And, the idea of already having a plan and already executing a plan on a daily, weekly, on a consistent basis. When those crises come up, and every business at some point is going to face some sort of crisis. It's not a matter of if, but when. But when those things happen, you're already prepared for them. Kind of like kids in a school, that they do a tornado drill and a fire drill, hoping it'll never happen, but there's a chance it might, and if it does, everybody knows how to handle it. Do you find that businesses respond well to the idea of, okay, let's be in a good habit of doing these kind of things on a consistent basis so that if something were bad to happen, we would be prepared?
The short answer is no.
Yeah.
and here's the reason why, I think, is that social media is not a traditional, and if you could see me, I'm doing my air quotes right now, a traditional marketer's platform.
Right.
And think about that for just a second. First of all, I lay no claim. There are a lot of people a lot better, a lot smarter at social media than me. There are a lot of people out there. But here's the reason, I think, because I've given this a little bit of thought. Social media is not the traditional marketer's platform. Think about it just a few years ago, in fact. I mean, how did we reach people? Most people, small business leaders, organizations, entrepreneurs, pretty much the same way, is they did it through print, they did it through radio, or they did it through television, right? And there were lots and lots of products and services that were sold that way. It's a one-way medium. You tell people what you think or what you want them to do and how you would like for them to act and or respond, right? That's how we've done this. But along comes the Internet and then search engines and then smartphones and all these different kinds of social media platforms that exist that we've never had access to. And think about it for just a few minutes. You know, if you go back to even the first, like, say, on the social media smartphones and mobile app milestones, when you start thinking, I think it was Bell South who developed a Simon platform back in the 1994, and then that became the genesis for the Research in Motion's BlackBerry, which came along in 1999. And then there was the Apple iPod in 2001. And then the Windows smartphone came along in 2001, the first generation. A lot of people forget about that, the Windows smartphone in 2001. Then there was the Palm, and that was in 2002. There was Tumblr in 2007, Twitter in 2006, YouTube 2005 along the same time, Facebook 2004, BlackBerry. I'm kind of hitting off some of the marks on there, but then you get down to the Apple iPhone. Apple iPhone just came around in 2007. The Apple App Store didn't even come around to 2008. 2008. Imagine your life without that, right?
5 years ago,
Android. I know. Then Google Android came out in 2008. The numbers I saw last week for Google at this point, 81% of the market share for smartphones, and they just came around within the last 4 years. Then you got the iPad in 2010. You got Pinterest in 2010 as well, and there's so many more platforms. There's so many different ways to communicate. And the thing that I wanted to get across here, Dennis, in response to your question was, social media is not the traditional marketer's platform because they pushed out that communication. Now you have, to such a great extent, created a dialogue, and that can be a blessing and a curse for a lot of businesses because you have to be willing to engage in that conversation. And if a business is not willing to engage or devote the resources to that, then I recommend a lot of times you may not want to be on some of those social media platforms, but you need to understand what they do because there are people talking about you whether you're talking in the conversation or not.
Yeah. No, you raised some great points there. It is, the one thing that I think about, as you rattle off the dates is in the big picture, so much of this is still so new. But everybody's learning curve and adoption rate now is just so fast compared to what it used to be. But, the idea, too, that, and I've heard some people talk about this as well, with social media platforms, and this kind of goes back to the idea of research. When you're researching not only your plan but also your target audience, that research, the quality of the research will determine a lot of times what social media platforms you should or should not use, don't you think?
Absolutely, because knowing who is on what platform is going to help you determine when you get in even beyond the research into the planning and the implementation phase itself for, what do we want our message to be, who do we want to be able to reach, and what do we want them to do with the information that's provided. Not what we hope that they're going to do, but what we want them to be able to do.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's kind of like, you can go really big, far-fetched example here, but kind of like, okay, look, an 85-year-old's probably not going to be on Vine. So if you're, if your product is aimed at 85-year-olds, I wouldn't spend a lot of time on Vine. I don't think you're going to reach them there, So, and
they're replaying that 6-second clip again and again and again.
It would be maybe easy to use. I don't know, but it does speak. It kind of over illustrates the point though that you make is that your your message, what you're trying to accomplish will only work in certain places. It's not like a shotgun approach where you just pull the trigger and you got pellets going everywhere and hoping you hit something. You've got to really, really think about, and even within the platform. I don't know. Tell me your thoughts about Facebook ads and targeting among the demographic data and so forth that's on Facebook.
I think that's good. I think it's improved. If we were having this conversation 6 months or a year ago, it probably would be different. But even on the whole Facebook thing, I got to tell you, kids have already moved on to something else. Think about this. Do you guys remember MySpace?
Yeah.
Well, there was MySpace, and then there was the Facebook, and then once parents started jumping on Facebook, man, kids have moved on to other stuff.
Oh, they have.
Snapchat, everything else. So,
Yeah.
like you said, fine. There's a new medium. But the point to get across here, Dennis, to kind of relate to what you're saying is this. What I tell people a lot of times is, and you hear the term a lot, and I don't think it's valid. People will say, and a lot of politicians will say this, and if there are politicians that are listening to your podcast, please change this. They'll say these words, general public. We're trying to get information out to the general public. In my opinion, there is no such thing as the general public. There are a variety of different publics, and with each one of those publics that you identify and part of your research, that's going to help you in your planning and your implementation phase specifically. Because if you're trying to reach white middle-aged men between a certain age range, then you're going to have to target a particular communication vehicle towards them. And how you approach it may be slightly different. Your end result is still going to be the same. You want to move behavior or product or service along those lines, but how you approach it, how you say it, who you say it to is equally important, as well as what the vehicle and knowing who's on those vehicles, all those that we've talked about in the last few minutes, are equally important. You can't do that scattershot approach like you used to could do when you were looking at traditional media, radio, television, or print.
Well, and
you can't do that anymore.
No, you can't. Well, and I mean, I guess you could if you wanted to. It may not be cost effective, and that's the. I guess one of the struggles that many businesses have with traditional media over the years, and why they are embracing the internet so much, is to advertise a business 10 years ago, you had to go with traditional media. There was no other option, and it was a scattershot approach. So you were trying to come up with that balance of a message that would attract the biggest audience on that particular TV station and get the biggest bang for your buck, knowing that the return on investment still wasn't that great. So, yeah, absolutely. One thing I wanted to ask you, we were talking about some of the social media platforms that the teenagers love right now. Where does YouTube fall into that equation?
YouTube, I understand, is the second largest or second greatest search out there behind Google when you look at it, because there's so much that you can find on YouTube.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. If you're looking for it, it's almost like reading the Bible. You can't hardly do something that somebody has not already done about before, kind of a thing. And YouTube is the same way. When you really look at that, type something in. You would be surprised. There's probably a video, and you know what? If there's not, there's an opportunity for you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. Absolutely.
Here's the cool thing, too. Go back, even what you were saying just a second ago in the advertising, just kind of tag on to that. It goes back to almost that old adage for advertising in the traditional model before, Dennis, is that, half of all advertising works. But which half, right? There are a lot of people that threw a lot of money after things. Now, we live in an age and a date and a time that you can really, really, really target your message to a certain group or people that share similar beliefs, age ranges, and that's a beautiful thing.
Oh, it is. For especially an entrepreneur wanting to start up a business, if you know what's your product, who's going to consume your product, then there's a lot of micro-targeting opportunity out there that had, like you said, even a year ago or 2 years ago didn't exist. I mean, it's incredible the opportunity to really just sample to see if your product or your service is going to work at your target audience for a relatively low price compared to what a business had to try to do that with 5 years ago. So
I probably could get some money back from Google for all the mentions that I have, but they do have those programs as well for small businesses and for others, anybody that wants to be able to do it. But you're paying per click,
right. Right.
And you get your message out, and it's not just for the ad. What you're doing is looking at their algorithms, and based on what searches people have already conducted, right?
Yeah.
You can put an ad on there, and someone's typing in something about, maybe it's about smoke alarms, for example.
Right.
They're asking something about that. There are several articles about smoke alarms, and then your ad appears on there. And it's one of those things just, oh, wow, that's amazing that someone was doing something and this ad mysteriously appeared on there. Well, somebody clicks on that and ties back, and you're measuring that. You're paying pennies for the click, but it may generate a really good lead for you.
Yeah. No. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You mentioned email. I want to go into it just briefly.
Please do, because it kind of almost saved the best for last there. And that's one of the things about email. I keep hearing, and I've heard people talk about email marketing is dead. The social media is the new king in marketing, and I'm like, people, email to me is still the golden egg opportunity there.
Well, I agree with some caveats here, because email marketing is a direct extension of what the old direct marketing used to be, and there's still some value in that. But I got to tell you, if you look at my desk today, I have several stacks. I know where everything is in the stack, and I really have good intentions of reading some of those pieces that come through, including some direct mail pieces. When I get to them, I don't know everything. So, but for the immediacy of the email is excellent. You can get it for pennies on the dollar to be able to get some email distribution lists. You can get it if you're looking to market to churches, for example. I'm just giving an example. There are marketers out there. They can break it down by denomination. They can break it down exactly where you want to be able to go. Now, but here's the caveat that I mentioned with that, Dennis, or at least what I found is this, is that it's not a panacea for all your problems that you may have or the issues. And if you're looking at making a one-time investment, especially for calling lists are going to be more expensive and they're more labor-intensive for your folks to use. However, you may get someone on the phone. You may extrapolate some additional information. On the other side, your email lists are going to be much cheaper, but you can't do it just once.
No.
And I kind of equate it to advertising. A lot of time, I mean, with the traditional advertising, when you see it on television, if you see an NPR fund drive again and again, how many times people have to see it before they go, oh, you're talking to me. I need to give, Oh,
that
me.
wasn't right. It was for me. Yeah, the message. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
even if you're targeting them, they may and probably don't, and I hate to say it, but they probably don't know who your company is. They probably don't know who your product is.
Right.
If you're reaching out to them that first time, and there's an investment on that, and if you're expecting your return on investment to be really high, it's going to be low. That's just the reality.
Absolutely
but
is.
The more that you do it, and the more repetitive that you do it, by golly, that's where you're going to see the results. Just make the investment, and it's planting a seed. Cultivate it, watch it grow.
And investment not only in money, but in time as well, because it's not a throw it out there and see who picks it up and comes back to you. It's keep throwing it, and maybe months or years from now, someone will come back to you and say, you know what, you've been very consistent over the years with this. I'd like to talk to you about, business opportunity. And like you say, it's not just the email. There's a lot of moving parts to that wheel, but that you have to be consistent about. And that's, I understand from a small business point of view, and maybe even some medium businesses, they're intimidated by that, wow, that's a lot of work that I have to do on a lot of different places all the time. But it's what I'm telling people. I don't know, maybe you've got a different opinion about this or not, but I'm telling them, like, look, this is an opportunity for you to establish yourself for a long-term growth strategy, but it's not, it's something that you're going to have to commit to do, just like opening the door at the same time Monday through Friday or 7 days a week whenever your business is open. You've got to commit to this digitally as well.
We've come full circle, haven't we? Because what we first started talking about was being able to build that trust, that credibility, and goodwill, whether it's for your customer base or for some of the key publics. And that's exactly what it allows you to be able to do. You can't do it one time and expect to yield the kind of results that you want. It's exactly what you said, Dennis. It's a long-term commitment to be in it for some time, to be able to see those full realization of the results that you want to be able to achieve.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, Mitch, I do like to give all of my guests an opportunity to tell folks what they're working on and kind of toot their own horn a little bit. Got any big projects headed your way right now?
Well, we have been wrapping up at High Ground Solutions some of our new products that we've been rolling out to our own customers, and one is called Schoolcast for Me. It's an enhancement to the voice, email, and text, and this is a free download that parents can get, whether they're a customer of ours or not. The district needs to participate, of course, but it's a free download. They can go to the Apple iTunes Store or the Google Play Store, and they can download the app. If their district, wherever it may be, is participating, then parents can get news and information in one-stop shopping. We've got the Pinterest, the
Wow.
Twitter, social media feeds all built in, YouTube channels that if they so choose for the district or the school level to coordinate. So it's just a great way to be able to demonstrate value. It's a great PR move, I believe, from schools. It doesn't cost them anything, again, to be able to participate. One of the great applications, I believe, is for away games. We have a built-in map. So if this is football season, as we're doing this podcast right now,
right.
It could be band competitions or whatever. The school goes in, they type in the away directions, and so parents, based on their smartphone or their tablet device, they go in, they click on where the next away event is going to be, and it leads them right there to that. So
that's awesome.
Schoolcast for Me. It's a customizable type of semi-customizable app for districts and schools, available through Apple iTunes and through Google Play.
Mitch, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us today.
Well, thank you so much, Dennis. I appreciate the opportunity.
And again, that was Mitch Edwards, Senior Vice President of Marketing and Business Development at High Ground Solutions Incorporated. Just, as I promised, fantastic interview. A lot of great insight into this idea of having a plan. And, one of the things that I take away, there were a lot of good takeaways from this interview, but one about the idea of how important the research and the evaluation of your plan is. We all come to the table a lot of times with an idea of what's going to work, and we really skip this whole research idea because we're afraid maybe of what we're going to find, afraid of wasting time and effort onto that. But and this is one thing I really forgot to put, kind of run by Mitch, because he's also a weather geek that I found out when we talked earlier this week as well. But it kind of comes into my play as a meteorologist over the years with weather forecasting. The better weather forecasts were always based on better weather data. It's kind of like trash in, trash out. Well, if you put a lot of great weather data about the history of weather into a computer forecast, it's going to give you a better forecast of what the weather to come is going to be. And so the same kind of deal with your business. The more data, the more facts that you can put in about your plan, about your business, your industry, your services, your customers, the more data you can analyze, the better, more qualified your business plan, your marketing strategy is going to be. It just produces better results. So don't skimp on that first step of research. It can really lay the cornerstones to make for a great business plan down the road. Kind of like, you use the term cornerstone, but you think about a business, a foundation of any building, your house, when it's built, You start with the cornerstones. You start with a foundation. If the foundation's not level and strong and sturdy, the house is going to be weak or unlevel. Same way with your business there. So, again, thank you to Mitch Edwards for the interview. Fantastic. If you can also catch this both on YouTube and on iTunes through the podcast there, and appreciate the time that Mitch put into that. If you have someone that you think would be a fantastic interview to talk to, for me to talk to here on the Cross Digital Podcast, let me know. Please visit crossdig.com. Send me a message there and let me know someone you think would make a great interview. And, of course, if you need some help with your business, with content marketing and so forth, all of that stuff, love to hear from you. Let's get you on the path to success. Just contact me at crossdig.com and we'll get you started. That's it for today's edition of the Cross Digital Podcast. I'm Dennis Washington. Have a great day.